Welcome back, everyone, where Sets and Groove are going to band together and just join everybody on their own merry little way.
Storm the castle.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Microsoft did send me an official comment on it and basically said, hey, no, this isn't. We're not saying it's not happening, but we're not saying it is happening. And, yeah.
What was this announcement with regards to? Or this
Sets.
Sets.
Yeah.
Mary Jo did get a quote about Sets that said it's not happening.
No. Well, so what they sent me was a similar thing, but if you kind of read into it, it says we're not doing it, but we're not saying we're not ever doing it. So it's
but I mean it's
dead,
right.
as
That's
you know
what
it.
Rich Turner said, right?
Don't hold your breath that this is coming soon.
Yeah. The clue should have been the two versions of Windows 10 they tested where it never came up once.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think they'd still like to get it. This is kind of a side topic, but you see this kind of thing a lot with Sets, like or with things like Sets, where Microsoft tests this feature. There are people who would have really enjoyed using it. There's probably a ton of people who would never have used it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they cancel it, and then you get these guys who are like on Twitter or email and comments. They'll be like, "Good, I never would have used this feature anyway. I'm glad it's dead." And it's like, wow,
yeah,
like God forbid anyone else enjoy it. I guess it wouldn't have harmed you in any way if it was available. I mean, I that kind of mentality bugs me a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. I kind of hope they get around to it. It seems like a solid productivity feature.
it does.
Whether you would enjoy it or not. Some people point to things like virtual desktops and so forth as some kind of a vague alternative. Virtual desktops are a power user feature. I mean, I feel like Sets is something that could have benefited normal people.
Yeah, one thing that they are unkilling, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never liked the way they handled, pardon the pun, given that photo, Paint. Paint 3D, like the thing I just mentioned. I mean, there are people who love it and use it and don't understand the animosity. There are people who can't stand it. I fall into the camp of someone who will never use it and don't care for it, but I don't mind it being there.
Right.
What I mind is that it was designed to replace Paint, and it in no way is a replacement for Paint. It's a different kind of thing altogether. And I don't know. Paint to me is as crucial as a tough word, except that I use it literally every single day as, say, something like Notepad, right? It's a very basic kind of desktop OS utility. It's been around literally since the first version of Windows 95, Windows period, sorry, 1985.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hurting anybody. I had heard some time ago that Paint was among the apps in Windows that Microsoft was going to open source, by the way. And you may recall that since then, they did announce the open sourcing of, was it Calculator or Notepad?
Yeah,
Calculator. So I had heard that both Notepad and Paint were on the block to be open source. I actually think that would be kind of interesting and maybe even more useful than open sourcing Calculator. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know, but they stuck that little product warning in there, like, hey, this thing's going away. Don't get too used to it.
Yeah.
I think at one point they had said it was going to be made available as a store app. So if you needed it, you could get it, which, is fine. But I'm glad they stopped dicking around with that. That was stupid.
Yeah. And if you have any feedback, feel free to open My People and try to connect with somebody who might be able to.
Nice. Yeah. Wow. Was there even a single example of a third-party service extending My People in any way?
I don't know. I was actually looking right now because there is a thing that says get more apps in the store. So if you click it inside of My People, what does it take you to?
What does it take you to?
Right now it's a wide open white page. Okay. Nope, just the store home page.
Yeah.
Which is filled with great apps such as Move Mouse, Hello Neighbor, Roblox. Yeah. But I'm sure we'll get some clarity on all this stuff at Build this year. They'll just... Which is...
I think there's a bigger chance the word Windows does not get uttered once in the Build keynote than us getting any clarity on any of this stuff.
Yeah, I was chatting with Mary Jo, and she brought up an interesting point. She's like, I don't know if they're going to announce Windows Lite at Build, because if they do, it will dwarf all announcements.
Right.
And they
Right.
typically don't want build anymore to be about Windows, despite the fact that they'll have 1 billion people using it here probably by the end of the year, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, they're moving on. Although, but Build is a developer show, and I will say one of the more interesting trends over the past few years, which kind of mirrors this change we're seeing as consumers or end users in Windows 10,
Mm-hmm.
is the migration of Windows 10 based APIs and SDKs to non-UWP platforms,
Yep.
right, including legacy platforms like WPF and WinForms, things like that. And the world would probably be a very different place if Microsoft had just done that from the get-go, right? And the non-developer version of that is if Microsoft had just make Edge available on all versions of Windows
Mm-hmm.
when it was first announced, that world might have been a little different too. That would have forced them to do a number of things, including, I think, updating it more regularly, right, rather than tying it to the Windows 10 release schedule. So here we are, whatever. It's 4 years later. Things are what they are, but
Hey, but as you wrote this morning, they're starting to kind of not suck. So
yeah.
which is good. It's
Somebody called me out on that being a clickbait headline, but as I replied to that gentleman, a clickbait headline is a headline that does not fulfill its promise, right? The point of the phrase clickbait literally means that you have, under false pretenses, gotten someone to click on the article, get a page view. It's cheap, and when they get there, it doesn't really answer the question or it doesn't fulfill the promise. But this is not a clickbait headline. It's a controversial headline because it has the word "suck" in it, but it absolutely fulfills the promise of the statement that's in the headline, which is Windows 10 does not suck anymore. They have, not that Windows 10 completely sucked all along, but there was always that big asterisk on Windows 10. As good as you might have thought it was, inbox advertising, inbox crapware, privacy concerns, which I didn't personally see, but people complained about that with the telemetry you couldn't turn off, the Windows as a service stuff. The list kind of goes on and on and on. And I document that in the thing because, again, it's not a clickbait article. But that stuff's all been reversed. I mean, I just posted something you probably haven't seen yet. I literally just posted it. But, I mean, now that the big issues are behind us, except for the advertising thing, that's, I guess, the one remaining big thing, we can start focusing on more minor issues. And what a wonderful luxury that is, right? I mean, not to have these big things hanging over us anymore. So things have changed. It's nice.
Yeah. It is nice.
Yeah.
It is nice. Build is just about, well, it's less than 2 weeks away because there will be nothing on Tuesday of Build because Google I/O is happening that day.
Yeah. We'll be huddled in the press room paying attention to someone else's show. Sorry. That's what happened last year. In fact, I left I guess it would have been the day two keynote. Did they do 2 days of keynotes? I think they must have.
No,
I left the keynote. Then it must have been the same day because I remember I left early because I wanted to catch the beginning of the Google thing because I feel like a lot of the important stuff happens right up front. But yeah, good kudos to Microsoft for once again scheduling that in the same week as Google. So
the thing that kills me is that they had this date known for a while, but the thing is, I don't think Google cares. I think they were honestly waiting for Google to announce their stuff and then deciding if they were going to shift it one day or not.
Right.
Which really brings.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was going to say, I'm curious where Build is going to be next year.
You don't think it will be in Seattle again?
I mean, it could be, but they typically do things in 3 increments, and then.
Yeah, it may be a contract issue. I like going to Seattle. I kind of hope they keep it there. I don't expect them to ever do an East Coast thing, so I'm not even going to dream about that.
That would be amazing.
Wonderful. But given that will never happen, I don't know. I'd rather go there than San Francisco, frankly. And I would love to go to LA, but I feel like I'm in the minority on that one.
I wouldn't personally mind San Francisco again. I like the city.
Just because it's been a while. No, I do too. I do too. But it's an expensive place to be, and I don't know. I find Seattle a little easier to kind of get around and cheaper to be there and so forth.
The only reason I'm selfishly trying to tell Microsoft not to do it next year is my wife, which is very far off, but somehow she already knows about it. Next July, she has to go to Seattle for work. And so it'd be super convenient if they didn't do the thing in May, and then I can be like, hey, I'll just come up in July, and the wife and kid will probably come, and it'll probably be just a family vacation, I guess.
You could still do it. Lots of cool stuff to do there with kids.
No, it'll still happen. I would just prefer not to go to Seattle twice within 3 months, but...
Yep.
Yeah. Yep, yep, yep. I am trying desperately not to sneeze right now. This is going very well.
Going poorly.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
It must be the pollen.
yeah, yeah. It is out in full force, by the way.
Speaking of which, I don't know how to do this with where you live, I would have assumed
Does this involve
that.
time zones?
No, not
Okay.
necessarily. No, not well. Maybe it does. And maybe that's part of it. So I would have assumed that the spring that we experience where I live is about the same as where you are, right? But this
Mhm.
past weekend, when we drove west through Pennsylvania and we went to Pittsburgh, it's very clear that in Pittsburgh, spring is a week to 10 days ahead of where it is here. So the trees are greener, they're more full, and then you can kind of witness that. And I'm going to Boston this coming weekend, and I'll be able to watch spring retract, right,
Mhm.
as I go north a little bit, but east a lot, I guess. And maybe it is a time zone thing. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe this is based on where you are in the time zone. I'm not really sure, but
I think it's based on north and south. Just throwing that out
just
there.
north south. Yeah. No, that's what I had always thought. But it was kind
Yeah.
of. I don't think of Pittsburgh as being south of where I am. It's obviously west.
I need a map.
I know it probably.
Globe.
Yeah, it's the drive to Pittsburgh from where I live is as long as the drive to Boston.
Mhm.
That's how big Pennsylvania is, right? So it's kind of strange because when I drive home to Boston, obviously I drive through New Jersey, the New York City area, Connecticut, and then half of Massachusetts. And when I drive to Pittsburgh, I drive through Pennsylvania.
I was trying to look at an actual globe here, and I don't know what I'm on. What website is this? National Geographic's website, and this is.
Curious.
I don't know if this is what I'm going to do.
Because the way it looked right there, I would say, just from a lifelong experience, like it doesn't look like that in Boston until middle of May.
Well, I will tell you that Cincinnati, looking at this, is
Mhm.
significantly further south than Pittsburgh.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So we are on. Well, it's not quite perfect, but we are almost. Cincinnati's almost on the same plane as Washington D.C.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a significant difference. So it's obviously not as the crow flies, but it's about a 3.5 hour drive south from here to get to DC. Okay, that's neat. I mean, and so maybe Pittsburgh being in the lower, southwestern corner of the
Trying to
state
see if they
is
can actually get
likewise.
longitude and latitude lines on here. We can watch.
The curve of the Earth is confusing to me, Brad. Could you explain?
Well, the first thing you're going to know it's flat. So if you just keep walking, you'll eventually
Fall off the edge and get eaten by a dragon.
layers. What about layers? Well, I don't want time zones. That's not going to help me. Well, anyways, according to this,
Oh yeah, no. I mean, even on a flat map, you can see that Cincinnati is in fact much further south.
it's much further south. I mean, it's roughly. I would say we're about maybe a week at the most behind DC, because when they have their cherry blossom things saying it's peak, it's usually a couple days after that happens that Cincinnati.
Well, that means you're weeks ahead of us. Then that's neat.
Yeah. Here's another neat fact for you. If you go to Florida, it'll be.
Yeah, it's already winter.
Yeah.
They're so far ahead. The leaves are already changing because of the fall. I've spent much of my life and my career in a dark office, so I've only very recently become aware of the passage of time. So I'm still fascinated by this. The light in the sky changes depending on the time of the year. And
Paul has just been stuck in the event horizon around a black hole. Just time has been passing slowly due to dilation.
Sorry, I don't know why I find this stuff interesting. I didn't expect Pittsburgh to be different from a spring perspective, but it was.
It's funny how that works. Well, you got anything else for today, Paul, before I go sneeze because of the pollen that is more here than there?
No, I'll be home for a few days, so that'll be nice. But no, nothing.
Yeah,
nothing
you don't have anything
on.
between now and build, do you? Well, you're going up early.
I'm going to Boston.
Oh, and up early.
Yeah, I'm not going to be home on a weekend for like a month. So like I have,
Well
I'm
done.
going to Boston this coming weekend. The weekend before build, I'm going to Vancouver. What day do you leave? What day do you go home from build? Wednesday?
Thursday morning.
Thursday morning. Yeah, I might be going home Friday.
Well, we got to do some filming for the
shenanigans.
Which might actually happen on Wednesday because I'm flying in Sunday morning, but I land at no joke 8 a.m. Seattle time because of the.
I'll be driving there on Sunday, but I bet it'll be fairly late. I bet middle of the afternoon.
Yep. Well, good times. Good times. I'm trying to actually just try to make sure I booked everything now that I said it out loud. I think so.
I know.
We'll find out when we get there.
Yeah. Hopefully you don't have to sublet.
Yes, that sleeping on Raph's couch.
Mm-hmm.
All right, folks. Well, that wraps it up for today. Today's action-packed episode is whatever. I don't know. Have yourselves a wonderful day.